Hi, this is Andy Bose, Director of Data and Eligibility at School Food Solutions. Today we're talking about Mealtime Apply Online 2.0. Congratulations, you have online applications. All right, the website where your families are going to need to go to fill out their online app is mealtimeapps.com. Now, this can be shared with via email, newsletter. Definitely encourage that you post it to your school website. We encourage you to encourage as many families as you can to complete the application online. It's going to save your team time. They don't have to be, reviewing and scanning and keeping track of paper forms if most folks are able to fill it out online. The website is also mobile friendly, so if your families pull it up on their smartphones, they'll be able to complete it there, or they can do it on a more traditional computer screen. Families are going to need basically the same things that they would need to fill out a paper application. There's no need to create an account, and they're not required to know their student's ID number or any special information. They will need to know the name of your school district or charter organization as it's listed in Mealtime. So what they're going to have to do is select the state and then start typing the name of your school. So if you're a single school or you're part of a network of schools, you may want to let your families know what to enter in this field for district. So to get started, that's what they're going to have to do first is basically select the state and then find your school network. They also have the option on any page to choose from the top 10 languages spoken in the U.S. To Google Translate the form. So they could pick any of the languages on the list here, and the whole form will be translated accordingly. So there's several steps to fill out the application to make sure they get all the required info. The first bit is identifying the person who's signing the app, which is the person filling this out. So the first bit of information that we're getting is just like, who are you, adult who's completing this for the household? We can decide which of these parts are required, but it's first name, last name, and then email address at a minimum are required. For students, that's kind of the next step is identifying any students in the household who attend the school in your network. So they need to put in their first name, last name, the name of the school they attend, what grade they're in. There's also the option to add in their date of birth and student ID if they know that. They can add as many students as they need. So families should be filling out one form for all children who go to any of the schools in your school network. If they make a mistake and add a student that they don't need, they can always click that little trash can icon to delete the student. After they put in their students, there's the option to see if anyone in your household participates in a benefit program like SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance, or Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. These are also going to have the words that are state-specific about those programs. So, like, for example, if you're in California, it would say CalFresh and CalWorks for SNAP and TANF. Once they select one of these options, if it applies to them, they will be prompted to enter a case number for that program. Next up, they'll be able to see if any of the students who go to the school that they listed, if any of them are in a formal court-ordered foster care arrangement. That it defaults to no, but they can check that a student is a foster student. After that, it's going to ask them about other programs such as homelessness, migrant status, or runaway status. It asks, do any students in your household receive assistance under the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act? And similar questions for each of the programs. Again, it defaults to no on these, but they can click yes for any child who attends the school. After that, they get to identify any other children who live in the household. So if they have, 2 children who attend your school, but then they have a baby who's in daycare, or a child in college, or just anybody else in the household who's under 18 but doesn't attend one of your schools, they can add those folks here. If they don't need to add any other children, they would just click no other children and continue. Once all the children and students have been identified, they're going to ask if they have any sources of income. And so for each child that they put on the application, they'll be able to indicate yes or no about if the children have any income. If they say no, they move on. If they say yes, then they'll have a place to enter in that income information. So how much and how often that child gets income. Now that we're done with children, we move on to the adults. So we have the one adult who's completing the form. Their information is already in there. This is where they can identify any other adults that live in the household. And it explains what counts as a household, reminding them that grandparents or other extended family members that live with them count. Also, people like children who are away at college, or members of the family who might be deployed in the military would count as members of the household. So it explains all of that and allows them to enter the names of the additional adults. Now, for each adult that they included in the application, they will be asked about sources of income. It explains what income means and the type that they're supposed to be entering, the gross income, not the take-home pay income. And then it asks a series of questions to identify all the possible sources of income. So are they in the military? Do they have earnings from work? Do they have earnings from public assistance? And so on. There's a series of a few questions that they can answer yes or no to for each adult. And then for everyone that they said yes to, they're going to be taken to a follow-up screen where they can enter the amount and frequency of that income for that adult. This next screen is optional and it's customizable. This is a way for your parents who are completing the application to consent to share the eligibility data from this with other programs that they might be eligible for. So, for example, testing fee waivers, bus passes, uniform vouchers. A lot of schools give extra benefits to folks who qualify as eligible on an application. And so this would just be a way for a parent to consent to sharing their data for that purpose. This is customizable. So if your school has specific programs you want to list here, we can, or we can keep it kind of generic as just a consent to share broadly. All right, after they fill that out, they get to confirm the signer's contact information. This is going to be taken from what they put in when they first entered the application, and they can update it if they need to. Then they have the opportunity to share the race and ethnicity of the children in the household. This is totally optional. They can leave it blank if they like. They are presented with some legal statements that are normally included on a paper application, the use of information and the non-discrimination statement. They can scroll through that, read it, and then they have to check, I agree to the terms and conditions to continue. And then the last page, this one's real nice. It has a review of the application. So it lists all the children and adults who live in the house. And then at the very bottom, it has a little summary line. It says, I certify that there are 3 people in my household and that our income is about however many dollars per month. And they have to check that box in order to submit the application. So this is a good kind of check, too, that if they, left something out or if that number doesn't seem right, they can always go back and fix the issues in the application before they submit. Once it's submitted, they should get a screen that says thank you. They're also, if they entered their email address, going to get an email confirmation that basically says it's been submitted, and that they can keep for their records. So School Food Solutions is going to be processing all the online applications as they're submitted. Those determinations will be included in the status list that we send you, just like any paper forms that you would be scanning to us. And we'll let you know if for some reason a family completed an application online that we can't process, although this is pretty rare. If you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to reach out to us. The email to use is forms, FORMS, @schoolfoodsolutions.org. Thank you so much.